The silence that fell over the Vanguard outpost wasn't the quiet of peace, it was the suffocating stillness of a sudden, total power failure. High above the atmosphere, the Drexian hegemony's armada hung in the void like jagged shards of obsidian, their plasma cannons fully charged and aimed at the fragile human colony below. They were the galaxy's ultimate hammer, ready to strike the final nail into the coffin of humanity's expansion. Then, in a single heartbeat, the lights across the entire formation died. Engines spooled down with a mournful groan. Gravity generators failed, leaving thousands of the galaxy's most feared warriors floating helplessly in their corridors. On the surface, Commander Elena Rook didn't even look up from her data pad. She simply tapped a final command, the blue light of the screen reflecting in her eyes, confirming the upload of the dormant cyber virus. This was asymmetric warfare at its finest, the realization that in a universe of dreadnoughts, the most dangerous weapon was often the smallest. But to understand why the Drexians had brought an entire war fleet to crush a single outpost, one had to look back 48 hours to the blood-soaked heat of the arena on Xylos. The transition from the cool command center to the memory of the obsidian pit was jarring. The air on Xylos tasted like copper and ozone. The roar of the Galactic Council's elite spectators was a physical weight, a wall of sound demanding violence. In the center of the pit stood Warlord Kralos. He was a mountain of muscle and chitin, a four-armed testament to biological warfare, and the self-proclaimed apex predator of the sector. Opposite him stood Elena. She wore no power armor, no kinetic shielding, just standard-issue fatigues and a look of mild annoyance. Kralos laughed, a sound like grinding tectonic plates. He played to the crowd, raising his four serrated blades. He was a space orc in every sense of the term, massive, brutal, and utterly convinced of his own invulnerability. He looked at the small Terran woman and sneered. She brought a kitchen knife to a galactic death match and barely broke a sweat. It was a simple steel blade, 6 inches long, the kind used to chop vegetables, not pierce the hide of a deathworld beast. But Elena wasn't there to overpower him. She was there to prove a thesis on human ingenuity. Raelos lunged. The speed of a creature that size was terrifying, a blur of motion intended to cleave her in two. The crowd gasped, anticipating the spray of red mist. Elena didn't block, she didn't run. She stepped, a single step to the left, pivoting on her heel. The massive blade slammed into the stone floor where she had been a microsecond before, sending sparks cascading like fireworks. Strength isn't about how hard you hit, it's about knowing exactly where not to be. This was the core of kinetic redirection. As Kralos struggled to pull his weapon from the stone, Elena was already moving inside his guard. She didn't stab, she flowed. Her movements were fluid, efficient, a dance of pure calculation amidst the brute force. She tapped his knee joint with the back of her blade, a precise strike to a nerve cluster. The giant roared, not in pain but in confusion, as his leg buckled. He swung a second arm, a backhand meant to crush her skull. Elena ducked, the wind of the blow whipping her hair back, and used his own momentum to slide behind him. The crowd went silent. The tiny human was dismantling the champion, not with force, but with the terrifying application of physics. She was a ghost in the machine of his violence. With a swift movement, she kicked the back of his remaining knee, forcing him down to the ground. Before he could rise, she was there. The cold steel of the kitchen knife pressed gently against the soft, unarmored skin of his throat. She didn't draw blood. She simply held his gaze, her breathing even, her pulse steady. This was the Terran spirit the galaxy feared, not the ability to destroy, but the discipline to spare. The silence in the command center was absolute, a stark contrast to the cacophony of the arena memory. On the main view screen, the Drexian armada drifted aimlessly, a collection of metallic corpses against the starfield. The dormant cyber virus had done its work with terrifying efficiency, locking down navigation, weapons, and life support to reserve levels. It was the ultimate expression of asymmetric warfare, the neutralization of a superior military power not through matching their firepower, but by exploiting their reliance on interconnected systems. Signal from the flagship, a technician called out, their voice trembling slightly. It's Warlord Kralos." Elena tapped the console, and the holographic projector hummed to life. Kralos appeared, bathed in the red emergency lighting of his bridge. He didn't look like a conqueror anymore. The massive space orc looked tired, his forearms resting heavily on his command table. He stared at Elena, the tiny human who had first humiliated him in the pit and now held the lives of 40,000 of his soldiers in her hand. "You have not fired," Kralos rumbled, his voice distorted by the static of the dampening field. "Our shields are down. You could vaporize the entire fleet." "I could," Elena replied, her voice calm, projecting a terrifying serenity. "But dead men don't learn lessons, Kralos, and they certainly don't sign treaties." This was the principle of psychological deterrence. Destruction creates martyrs. Mercy, delivered from a position of absolute dominance, creates obedience. By sparing them when she had every right to destroy them, she wasn't just defeating an army, she was dismantling their entire cultural philosophy. The Galactic Council, watching from their distant observatories, would see that the Terran spirit wasn't defined by bloodlust but by control. "Your software update," Kralos gestured to the dead consoles around him. "It is a weapon more cowardly than poison." "It is efficiency," Elena countered, leaning forward. "You judge strength by the weight of the hammer. Humanity judges it by the precision of the strike. You are an apex predator in a jungle that no longer exists, Kralos. The universe has evolved. It requires adaptability, not just armor." The warlord fell silent. For a species raised on the dogma that might makes right, the reality that a smaller, softer species could render their dreadnoughts useless was a paradigm shift that shattered his worldview. He looked at the woman who had defeated him twice, once with a knife and once with code. "If we surrender," Kralos said slowly, the words tasting like ash in his mouth, "what is your demand?" "Immediate withdrawal from the Vanguard sector," Elena said. "And you, Kralos, you stay." The warlord's head snapped up. "As a prisoner, as a student." A ripple of shock went through the command center. Elena stood up, walking to the edge of the viewport where the drifting ships blocked out the stars. "You have power, Kralos, you have loyalty, but you lack vision. You fight like a stormblind and destructive. I want to teach you how to fight like a scalpel." The tension in the holographic transmission shifted. The humiliation on Kralos's face slowly morphed into something else: curiosity, perhaps even respect. He was a death worlder, a creature forged in conflict, and he recognized now that he was standing before a master of a different kind of war. Human ingenuity. Kralos mused, a low growl that might have been a chuckle. "You defeat us, shame us, and then offer to teach us how you did it." "That is how we survive," Elena said, a small, sharp smile touching her lips. "We don't just survive the monsters in the dark, we make friends with them." Kralos nodded, a gesture of submission that rang louder than any cannon fire. The peace treaty that followed would be historic, but the real victory was in that quiet moment of understanding. The Drexian hegemony had come to conquer, but they would leave, having been conquered by a simple truth. In a galaxy of giants, it is the adaptable who rule. Educational takeaway. The final victory illustrated psychological deterrence, using the threat of destruction combined with unexpected mercy to break the enemy's will to fight, proving that true power lies in restraint rather than annihilation.